Hey guys, welcome back to Malcolm May. Today we're going to be redoing plaster walls and ceiling in a bedroom. Today we're going to do my least favorite job, which is to tear down an old 1890s plaster ceiling. What's up, Bob? Yes. We're going to take down an old 1890 plaster and lath ceiling. So this house is from 1890. I've taken down most of the ceilings. If you look up here, it has calcimite. It's not really the best excuse for having to take down the ceiling, but I'm taking down the ceiling so I can put in some recessed lights as well. Hopefully there's just one ceiling. And it's not so much about technique, it's more about just getting prepped for it. So if you look at the floor here, I've come in and I've laid down sheets of masonite. Some people will use paper, but I prefer masonite because it really can take a beating. I use duct tape to tape the seams. And then I'm going to put plastic over both sides of the door, both our closet door as well as the exterior door. And then the technique is I stick this crowbar up in the ceiling and I just pull the lath. And the lath looks like this. It's hundreds of strips of this little wood that some craftsperson 130 years ago just nailed up there, and then they mixed up horsehair plaster, and the horsehair was basically an aggregate that just made the plaster stick together, and the horsehair plaster went through the gap, about a 1/4-inch gap between the pieces of lath, and stayed up there. And then what happens over time is those fingers of plaster start to fail and break off, and the ceiling lags. You can see over here, I'm gonna also take down this wall, because you can see that crack there? And as I push on it, the plaster wants to give away. And really the only way to deal with that is to take it all off. So by the end of the day, I'm gonna take the ceiling down, I'm gonna take this wall down, and I'm gonna take this wall down. And all of the debris, once I'm locked in the room for the day, I'm going to send down this chute and into my truck. So this is a cheap, homemade, using scrap wood chute that's gonna go down to my truck. And tools that you must have: respirator. It's gonna get incredibly dusty in here. It will get so dusty that I won't even be able to see the hand in front of my face. And safety glasses. And don't wear any clothes you can't afford to lose, because the plaster has this, not only does it have an incredible stink to it, but it's like oily. It has this, it's 130 years old, it's been sitting up there. I feel bad about ripping it down. Before I do that, I'm going to remove the crown molding, and we'll do a couple shots of that, and then I'm going to score with a utility knife the space between the ceiling and the walls. That way, when I rip the ceiling down, it comes away from the walls without injuring the walls as well. So that's it. And the tools of the trade: crowbar, respirator, safety glasses, and then I have a bucket, my buckets of tools up here, and then trash bags. The biggest thing about cleaning up is to separate the lath from the plaster. So I'm going to have hundreds of strips of wood to separate out from the plaster. And this little guy here is, with his iPad, is going to be in there working with me the entire time.
No, I'm not.
So if you have a dumpster, you can just put a chute like this out the window into the dumpster. But I was trying to save some money, so I'm bagging all the plaster. That way it limits the mess. And the lath, I'm going to separate out and put in here. And I may use the lath for something, some craft project like making frames or something. Otherwise, I'll throw it out as well. But the lath comes in sections anywhere from 1 foot to about 3.5 feet. So plaster's going to go in here, the lath is going to go in there. You want to be careful not to put too much plaster in the bags or in the barrel, and to overweight them, because the bags will split, and plus it's tough on your back if you're putting too much plaster in. So be aware of that. After a little bit, you'll get used to how much plaster you should put in the barrel before you throw the bag down the chute. Before I take the ceiling down, I'm sealing up this entrance to our walk-in closet. And before I do that, I'm going to replace this belly casing, which is painted, and it's, again, probably from the 1890s, but I'm going to remove it because I can go out and buy brand new identical molding to this made in poplar. And what I'm going to do is replace these blank corner pieces with rosettes that match the belly casing. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to use my favorite tool, my shark fin pry bar, and I'm going to be careful not to mar up the casing here when I remove the belly casing, so the casing around the window, around the door. So I'm going to score it first with a utility knife, and then I'm going to remove it. So I discovered that the molding that I just removed was actually new molding. It wasn't old, so I don't feel bad about removing it. So I will replace it with period style belly casing. That again, it's made out of poplar. And now, with the casing off, it makes it easier for me to staple the plastic around the walk-in closet door. And we'll do that now. Pre-cut plastic.
That's the veneer plaster, and that is the rough plaster.
I want to show you this. This is the what they call horsehair plaster. So this is, you can see the horsehair. It was a white horse. Maybe it was a unicorn. It might have been unicorn here, and the plaster. So that's the veneer coat. And it's not, I can't peel it away, but there's a veneer plaster coat and the rough plaster coat. And there's that fingers I tell you about before that goes into the lathe over here, like this. Just sort of sat in there like that, or like that, and it attaches to the wall. When I took down the walls here, the plaster off the walls, I was able to save all the lath on the wall because the plaster was in such bad shape that I just wanted to fall right off as soon as I hit it with the crowbar. So that's it, horsehair plaster. So the one snag yesterday when I went to attack the ceiling was that I found out that it was metal lath and Structolite, which is like a concrete. So it was lucky my friend Ed came over and helped me. Otherwise, it was a total workout. We ended up removing the metal lath with a roofing shovel, and that's the only thing that really was helpful in removing that stuff. If you think you have metal lath on your ceiling, then beware. It is a completely different animal than taking off old horsehair plaster on wooden lath. So wooden lath, horsehair plaster, not to be confused with Structolite and metal lath. It is a brutal battle. So that's it. So I got some insulation. We're gonna, while this goes over, we're gonna insulate, and we're gonna put in some recessed lights, and then we'll board it up. Okay, so the advantage to really leaving the lath on the wall is that it gives another surface to nail to for the wall board. But also the other thing is that when you leave the lath on the wall, you should use 3/8 wallboard versus 1/2 inch, because what that means, if your trim to meet the historic trim, so back in the day the lath was 3/8 and then the plaster on top of it was 3/8, we're told of 3/4 of an inch. So if you put 1/2 inch wallboard and then you skim coat on top of that, it's going to be too proud or too thick, and so your trim will sit proud of the window, and that's not a good idea. So in order to match the historical treatment of it, use 3/8 wallboard on top of the lath. If your lath happens to come off the wall, then the way to meet your historic trim is just actually take pieces of lath and staple it to the studs. It's virtually the same thing, and that way it's just building it out 3/8 of an inch. So the lath is 3/8, the skim coat plaster is 3/8 for a total of 3/4. Hey, thanks for watching. We did cover a lot in this video, so if you have questions, please let me know.